I should have known the peace wouldn't last. In the 5 years I've been with Mark, peace has always been a temporary state of being, a brief intermission between his mother's orchestrated dramas. But as our plane descended over the lush, emerald peaks of the Pitons in St. Lucia, I allowed myself to believe that a 3,000-mile buffer and a private island resort would be enough to keep Evelyn at bay. The wedding had been a battlefield. Evelyn didn't just want to be the mother of the groom. She wanted to be the director, the lead actress, and the ultimate authority on everything from the shade of the napkins to the wording of our vows. She had spent months weeping about her failing heart, a condition that only flared up when we disagreed with her and guilt-tripping Mark into inviting her entire bridge club. By the time we cut the cake, I felt less like a bride and more like an extra in a production of Evelyn's life. So, when Mark and I finally stepped into our honeymoon suite, the silence was deafening in the best way possible. The room was a masterpiece of dark wood and white linen, opening up to a private infinity pool that seemed to spill directly into the Caribbean Sea. The air smelled of hibiscus and salt. Mark wrapped his arms around my waist from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder. For the first time in months, his posture wasn't stiff with the expectation of a phone call or a crisis. "We made it," he whispered, kissing my neck. "No wedding planners, no guest lists, no drama. Just us." "I could stay in this room for the next 10 days and never see another human being," I said, leaning back into him. I felt a weight lift off my chest that I hadn't even realized I was carrying. We had spent the last year being the peacekeepers, the buffers, and the emotional sponges for his family. This was supposed to be our reward. We spent the afternoon in a haze of decompression. We unpacked slowly, ordered a bottle of champagne, and watched the sun begin its slow descent toward the horizon. It was perfect. We decided to have a quiet dinner on our balcony, watching the resort lights flicker on below us. The resort was a sprawling luxury property, built into the side of a cliff. From our vantage point, we could see the main lobby and the grand entrance where the shuttles dropped off new arrivals. Around 8 p.m., while I was picking at a plate of grilled mahi-mahi, a flash of movement caught my eye in the courtyard below. A black SUV had pulled up to the entrance. It wasn't unusual for guests to arrive late, but something about the way the porters were scrambling felt different. They were unloading suitcase after suitcase. I counted them as they hit the pavement. 1, 2, 3, 6 heavy, hard-shell Samsonite cases in a very specific shade of champagne gold. My heart did a strange, uncomfortable somersault. I knew those suitcases. I had helped load them into a car once when Evelyn decided she needed a weekend getaway to our tiny one-bedroom apartment 3 years ago. "Mark," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Look at the lobby entrance." Mark leaned over the railing, squinting. "What am I looking at?" "Just more lucky travelers." "The luggage, Mark. Look at the luggage." He stayed quiet for a long moment. I watched as a woman stepped out of the vehicle. Even from this distance, her silhouette was unmistakable. The perfectly coiffed blonde bob, the oversized white sun hat, and the dramatic way she threw her silk scarf over her shoulder. She was pointing at one of the bags and gesturing wildly at a porter. Mark's hand tightened on the railing. No, it can't be. It's just a coincidence. Lots of women have that haircut. Lots of people have gold luggage." "Mark, she's wearing the same white linen suit she wore to our rehearsal dinner," I said, my voice rising. The one she told me was an heirloom, even though I saw the tags from a department store in the trash. We stood there in a paralyzed silence as the woman turned her head, looking up toward the tiers of suites. For a terrifying second, I thought she looked directly at us, but she simply turned back to the concierge and marched into the lobby like she owned the island. "I'm calling the front desk," I said, turning back toward the room. "Sarah, wait," Mark said, catching my arm. "Don't overreact. If it is her, if by some insane, impossible chance she's here, we don't want to start a scene. Let's just wait until morning. We don't even know if it's her for sure." I didn't sleep. I lay in the massive king-sized bed, listening to the waves, convinced I could hear the rhythmic clicking of Evelyn's heels in the hallway. Mark tried to reassure me, but his voice lacked conviction. He knew his mother. He knew her surprises. The next morning, we headed down to the main pavilion for the breakfast buffet. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself the Caribbean was a popular destination, and it was just a lady who shared Evelyn's taste in expensive luggage. We were standing at the omelet station, waiting for our order, when the world tilted on its axis. "Marky? Sarah? Oh my goodness. What a small, small world." The voice was like a serrated knife through silk. We turned slowly. There she was, standing between the fresh fruit and the pastries, wearing a floral kaftan and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She looked as fresh as if she hadn't just flown thousands of miles to crash her son's honeymoon. Mark went pale. "Mom, what are you doing here?" Evelyn fluttered her hands, looking around the tropical paradise with practiced wonder. "Oh, you won't believe it. After the stress of the wedding, my doctor told me my blood pressure was reaching dangerous levels. He insisted I take a solo healing retreat, a time for reflection and prayer. I saw a brochure for this exact place in his office, and I thought, Evelyn, you deserve to heal." I had no idea you two had picked the same week. Is it the same resort? Truly. You know it's the same resort, Evelyn, I said, my voice cold. We told you the name of it a dozen times during the planning phase because you kept trying to suggest other places. Her lip trembled, a classic Evelyn move. Sarah, dear, I was so overwhelmed with the guest list and the flowers, I must have put it out of my mind. I just booked the first beautiful place I saw. Are you saying I'm not welcome to heal in the same ocean as you? Mark stepped in, his conflict avoidance reflex kicking into high gear. No, Mom, it's not that. It's just, this is our honeymoon. It's a bit of a shock. And it's been so lonely. Evelyn sighed, reaching out to pat Mark's cheek. The flight was grueling on my heart. I arrived last night, and the room they gave me is just dreadful. It's tucked away in the back, near the service entrance. I couldn't sleep a wink with the noise. I felt so isolated. I told myself, if only Marky were here, he'd help his poor mother. I saw where this was going. I could see the gears turning in her head, the same gears that had manipulated every holiday and birthday for the last half-decade. Well, you're here now, I said, trying to keep my tone even. I hope your retreat is very peaceful. We have a full itinerary planned, so we probably won't see much of each other. Evelyn's smile sharpened. She didn't look like a woman on a healing retreat. She looked like a hunter who had finally cornered her prey. She turned her gaze toward the resort manager, a man named Diego who was making his rounds near the buffet. Oh, wait, she chirped, her voice carrying across the entire dining area. I almost forgot the best part. I spoke to that lovely man over there this morning. Diego, I think. I explained my medical situation and how I needed to be close to my family in case of an episode. She looked back at us, her eyes gleaming with a terrifying sort of triumph. Evelyn smiles at us across the buffet and says, I told the manager we're a family unit, so he's moving my luggage into the suite right next to yours.